It took 14 straight losses on the road in the Central and Eastern time zones. And if that wasn't enough, USC decided, hey, you know what? Let's put a 3-hour weather delay in front of this game against Purdue. But they got it done. They got the win. USC is 3-0. They're having a perfect season.
You are Locked On USC, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Culkin, and thanks for making Locked On USC, part of the Locked On Network, your first listen every day. Whether you're watching the show on YouTube, pick a platform, download this podcast. This show is always free. This show will always appreciate your support. And this episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every moment count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward, Mazda, Move and Be Moved. Well, look, let's be honest. It wasn't pretty, but by the end of the game, USC, by the end of the night, it was perfect. USC's 3-0. They got the win. They beat Purdue 33-17. This is my instant reaction show. It is very late here in Chicago, Illinois. It's 2:00 my time in the morning. So I hope you guys are enjoying your evening. Hope you're enjoying. Hey, put that champagne on ice. It's another perfect weekend. This is like twice already this year. And does life get any bit better? Does it get any better? I mean, USC is 3-0. UCLA, they haven't won a game. Guess what? Neither is Notre Dame. That's why this is a perfect season so far. No, I get it. I know there's a lot of you out there thinking this USC's got a lot of work to do. They do. Nobody's denying that. But they're undefeated. Last year, this type of game against Purdue, when it seemed like everything was kind of going against them, they probably lose this game on the road. Remember, they lost to a Maryland team in 2024 that won one conference game. I feel safe saying this. This Purdue team is better than that Maryland team, and this Purdue team is very well coached, and I think they're going to win maybe 4 to 5 games this year. USC secondary, they got to do some work. I don't know if that's the way it was schemed up. Doesn't matter, but Purdue shouldn't be throwing for 300 yards on USC. The defensive line, they were fantastic when it came to the pass rush. Another 5 sacks. I don't know how many TFLs they had in the game, but they were in the backfield quite a bit. They were destroying Purdue's quarterback. He's got some good legs, and he knows how to move around. He just wasn't able to escape all the pressure. Again, another 5 sacks on the game for USC. One of them led to a pretty cool interception by Jamal Jarrett. Yeah, that was a lot of fun to watch. The USC's offensive line, I think it's fair saying they struggled a little bit early in the game. Purdue showed some different type of defensive wrinkles. They actually came in a new scheme, and until USC was able to kind of figure it out, it gave USC a little bit of problems on offense. Not a lot, but the running game wasn't working as well as it could have been. Jaden Mayaba, again, not perfect. In fact, he had a couple of scary moments throwing the ball, but he was still really good. He played under control. He was making the right reads when you had the run pass option, when it was whether to hand the ball off or to keep the ball because the defensive end was crashing down. He made, I would say if there was 100 decisions he had to make, 92 of them were fine. 92 of them were the right decision. No one's perfect. But again, this was my instant reaction based on what I remember, what I saw. Jaden Mayaba, he ran it in for a touchdown. First game this year, no passing touchdowns. If I would have told you going into this game that USC is not going to have a passing touchdown and they're going to have like 100 yards in penalties, you're probably thinking, yeah, well, they didn't get a win on the road. Just another day on the road. Well, USC figured it out. They were I'll go as far as saying they were in complete control. Were they threatened? Yeah. I mean, Purdue was, kind of making everyone white knuckle it a little bit. USC held a 17-3 halftime lead. And here's another, again, no passing touchdowns, but Ryan Sari, USC's place kicker, who I think might have Wally pipped Hayden Chittenden. He was 4 for 5 on field goals, perfect on extra points. He had a high pressure kick that he made at 48 yards. So while USC wasn't finishing their drives with touchdowns, they were getting points. And USC's defense was doing enough to keep Purdue out of the end zone as well. So defensively, 5 sacks. You had 3 interceptions on the game. Bishop Fitzgerald was lights out. I mean, both of those interceptions killed Purdue scoring drives. They didn't even get a field goal out of it. One was in the end zone. The other one was just outside it, and he did everything that he should have done. He even commented after the game that, they saw that formation on film, and before they actually went out there, Coach Lynn addressed it, say, hey, if you see this, jump the route. They ran it. He did it. He had 2 picks. That wasn't the most exciting play, though. I think the thing that got all of USC fans' attention, Trojan sideline was erupting. And even the announcers on the TV, which I haven't watched yet, but I did get to hear a little clip of it. When you see 6'5", 360 pounds, Jamal Jaw Jarrett rumbling 64, 70 yards, and he's picking up speed, he's running away from the Purdue team, you got something special. In fact, I asked him after the game, I said, because of that 3-hour weather delay, yeah, that did happen, folks. Did you have fresh legs at the end of the game? He got a big smile. He got into it. He's like, yeah, it was awesome. That 3-hour weather delay, let me come back to that, because that game was supposed to start at 3:30 local time here, 12:30 West Coast. By the time the game kicked off, which was, I don't know, 6:30, 6:45 local time, that's right around when USC should have been late in the fourth quarter. So yeah, it was a long day. It was a long day. But USC didn't let it faze them. They hung out in the locker room. The team had a great time. They ate. I don't know if they slept, but they stayed active. They were into it, and they were ready to play when it was finally time to play the game. Look, last year, again, USC loses this type of game. When you factor in the weather delay, the penalties, offensively not clicking on all cylinders, they probably lose that game. But this team's a little different. They're more mentally strong, and they do what's necessary. If the offense wasn't getting the job done, the defense picked them up. Again, those interceptions, fantastic. Came at the absolute perfect time. So, between Jaw Jarrett's interception, which, by the way, go back and watch the pressure that Devin Tompkins and Kamari Ramsey got. It almost reminded me of LoJack, and I'm trying to remember the other defensive line player that crashed it. It might have been Ray on what was his name? Rudy Carpenter, the Arizona State quarterback. Remember him? Remember that game down in Tempe where he was just getting wrecked all game long? Because of that pressure and the way they hit it, all of a sudden the ball's up in the air and it's landing in Jaw's arms, and he's off to the races. It was fantastic. Fun to watch. That was more fun to watch than the other crazy touchdown that Purdue had in this game. So again, they had 17 points. One of them, I think, was one of the flukiest touchdowns you're ever going to see. It was like a screen pass to one side, and then it was like a double pass, and the pass went backwards. They threw it back to the quarterback. Eric Gentry, I don't know how he did not come up with the ball. I mean, he literally had it in both hands. When he came down, it looked like the Purdue quarterback was trying to tackle him. Anyway, because the pass went backwards, it's now ruled a fumble. The quarterback picked it up, and he ran for a touchdown. That's a whole other issue. I don't know if he should have got that far. Nevertheless, ball bounces their way. They get the score. But that didn't keep USC down. They just kept going. They were ready to take on whatever life was thrown at them, including the referees. Man, that might be one of the worst officiating games I've seen in my lifetime. I'm going to talk about that in the next segment. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda is moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move the culture. They keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward, you heard me talk about it. His name is Jamal Jaw Jarrett. Go watch the highlight. Listen to Pete Arbogast's radio call. It was fantastic. How do you do? By the way, speaking of Pete Arbogast, I'll get back to that in a second. Anyways, if you haven't seen the highlight, go check it out. 6'5", 360 pounds. Dude's running the 40-yard dash in a 4.4. A little bit of hyperbole, but he was moving. He was moving like a Mazda moves. So it's I don't know if he has turbo boost, if Mazda offers a turbo boost, but Jaw kicked it into turbo when he was running for the end zone. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. So I mentioned the officiating. It was downright terrible. You want to know how bad it was? After the game, after I had a chance to kind of take a bunch of deep breaths, getting ready to leave the stadium to drive 2 hours back to Chicago, I jumped on Twitter. And go check it out. I can't use the language that I use here. But somebody explained to me that leaping penalty that USC got penalized for, that extended the drive for Purdue, that led to a score. It looked like the player jumped straight up. But I guess you're not allowed to jump over a player. And it didn't look like he was trying to, jump over the player. But the shield, the 3-man shield that protects the punter, one of the guys, because he jumped so high, all the defensive player had to do is, kind of push him over. And it's called leaping, launching. So USC got tagged for that. And look, we know they don't call holding in the Big Ten Conference, but my Lord, can you give it a shot? Because it was bad. It was bad. I mean, I've got people sending me messages all game long. Mark, why aren't they calling holding? And I'm sitting next to Peter Arbogast and Sean Cody in the radio booth. I wanted to let everybody know. I was their spotter for the game. I love sitting there with those guys, helping them out. Anytime possible, I will be there. So you're watching these penalties be called. In fact, no offensive holding. And maybe they called one or two throughout the game, but they called USC's defensive line for holding, and there was nobody being held. I mean, Jakeem Stewart, by the way, had a fantastic game. You can see his growth. It's awesome. By the end of the year, you're going to understand why everybody wanted him and why USC wanted him so badly. Dude's going to be a player. Floyd Boucard, another one. He had a sack. There was 5. I didn't write them all down. I apologize. Check the stats. I'm going to be doing a full recap show with Marvin Powell III, our MVP, on tomorrow's episode. This is my instant reaction show. So, again, I'm just kind of spitting stuff out there, see what sticks to the wall. Hopefully you enjoy it. One of the things that I enjoyed the most. So I'm sitting there. It's halftime. I come back into the radio room. I'm about to sit down next to Pete, and Sean Cody's talking to Marcus Allen. I'm like, oh, wow. That guy's pretty good. He's one of USC's best running backs of all time, right? Heisman winner, NFL Hall of Famer. I think Ronald Reagan called him a secret weapon after the Raiders won their Super Bowl. Marcus turns, he goes, hey, you're the Locked On USC guy. I watch you all the time. At that moment, I was ready to grab a cigarette like I just had the greatest sex in my life. It was like, oh, Marcus Allen knows who I am. Yeah, so a little bit of a pat on the back for me. I'm sorry. Great game. USC got the win. I'm in a great mood. Fantastic mood. And that made my day. And again, it's USC's having a perfect season right now. They're undefeated. Notre Dame, UCLA, they're winless. Let's enjoy this. But, statistically, you look at it. I mentioned in the first segment that USC wasn't perfect. They were, I don't even know, they weren't great, but they were good enough. They were good enough to beat this Purdue team. So you look at the first downs. USC had 22, Purdue 23. Third down efficiency. This is where USC really got hurt. They were 4 for 13. Meanwhile, Purdue 7 for 14. USC's tackling needs to get better quickly. Too many missed tackles. So where USC was terrible on third down conversions, they were perfect fourth down. They were 4 for 4. Total yards, 460, kind of a pedestrian number considering they were putting up 700 and 600. So, yeah, they dropped all the way down to 460. They only gave up 357 yards to Purdue, and they had over 300 yards throwing the ball, which means USC's rush defense, their run defense, fantastic. USC had 178 yards on the ground. Purdue finished with 52, and I know some of that had sack numbers included, but so what? 52 rushing yards. That's the number we're working with. That's the number we like. I talked about the penalties. 9 for 103. That's got to stop, guys. They have to get better. You got Michigan State coming in. Jonathan Smith, he always has a disciplined program. You cannot put up these kind of penalties. This has been consistent throughout the year, and it seems like it's getting worse. I get being aggressive. You don't want to tone that down, but another hands to the face penalty was called. Can't have that. Got to stop that. Meanwhile, Purdue, 5 for 60. Hello, what? The difference? USC forced 3 turnovers. USC didn't turn the ball over. And what's nice is normally time of possession, that's one of those stats you look at and go, all right. Well, USC had the ball 9 more minutes. They had 34 minutes of time possession, 25 for Purdue. I think where that number comes into play, USC's last offensive drive. They held the ball for, 6 minutes, running the ball. And it finished with a field goal. They weren't able to, crash it in, but they controlled the clock. They did what they had to do. Again, last year, USC loses this type of game. All right, got one more segment to go. I'm going to give you my position grades before I've had a chance to really dive into it. But again, right off the top of my head, this is how I would grade each position group for this game. That's coming up next. When I am on top of my hydration, I notice everything works better. My energy, my mood, my focus, even my skin. But getting fluids every day isn't always easy for everyone, but I found something that makes it easy. It's called Drip Drop. Drip Drop is doctor developed and scientifically proven for fast hydration. It uses the perfect balance of sodium electrolytes and glucose to help your body absorb fluids quickly, delivering 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of a leading sports drink. Look, I already drink a lot of water, so staying hydrated is really easy, really natural. Now it tastes even better. I just grabbed one of my favorite flavor pouches, tear it open, pour the powder in, mix it, drink it, and I am ready to go. I'm done. Right now, Drip Drop is offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first order. Just head to dripdrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege. That's dripdrop.com, promo code Locked On College for 20% off. All right. So it's almost the weekend. Well, actually, the weekend's almost over, I should say. But it's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. I spoke to you about Jamal Jarrett. You know what? Let's talk about Bishop Fitzgerald and his 2 interceptions. They were, like I mentioned, they could not have come at a more opportune time. He kept points off the board and kept USC in charge of the game. So just like you can every Saturday with DoorDash, using DoorDash Streaks, you can save more money every time you order. When you use DoorDash Streaks, you can, and you do it every Saturday, you can stack it up, right? You can save up to what, $250, and you're including up to $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this coming Saturday when USC hosts Michigan State. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply, and this promo period will run through November 18th. So don't wait too long. All right. Before we get out of here, I want to give you some quick grades on how each position group performed Saturday night against Purdue. I'll start on the opposite side of the ball. At quarterback, again, no passing touchdowns. The numbers weren't fantastic, 200-something yards. I think he missed like 10 or 11 throws. And there was actually a couple of throws where you're like, oh no, Jaden, don't do that. But for the most part, his decision-making was right on. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give him a B. Because again, it's when he ran the ball, he made the right decision most of the time. Running backs, I think I'll go B-. Mostly because they got out of the gate slowly running the ball. And I know a lot of that has to do with the offensive line. Nevertheless, it seemed like Waymo was getting tripped up by shoelace tackles on at least three times. Early in the game, he was going down too easy. And I'm sorry, I was wondering, is he okay? USC's run game was fine. They didn't have Brian Jackson for the game. Eli Sanders got in. Hey, King Miller got in the game early. You know what? We might have to take another look at King Miller. He didn't have any touchdown runs. He had to settle for 5 and 7 yard runs. King Miller is going to be just fine. USC's wide receivers, again, no touchdowns. However, let's throw the tight ends into there because Lake McCree, it looks like he's becoming USC's number 3 wide receiver. Lake is showing like he's the dude. So wide receivers, tight ends, I'll go solid B. Again, no touchdowns. Jacoby Lane led the team with 100-something yards just off 3 catches. Makai Lemon was doing Makai Lemon things again. Excuse me. How about the offensive line? Well, again, because they weren't really opening up holes, and I think they gave up 1 sack, and it was at the end of the first half, and they were okay. This wasn't their greatest game, but they were okay. I'll go B- there. Defensive line. Moving over to that side of the ball now. Fantastic on the pass rush, but their run stop, again, they held Devin Mockabee below 100 yards, which is what you want to do because he's a really good running back. But it just felt like they were off. The tackling on the defensive side of the ball across the board just wasn't very good. I'll say it. Poor. The defensive backs, specifically the cornerbacks, safeties, I thought were great. That's probably what raised this grade up to a C+. Bishop Fitzgerald, Christian Pierce, Kamari Ramsey, those guys were fantastic. Again, I don't know if the cornerbacks were being asked to play far off the receivers, but way too much cushion. Way too much cushion, especially when USC's defensive line, or whenever they had a blitz package, they were getting to the backfield. They were touching the quarterback. They were getting him off his mark. The throws are coming out quickly. Maybe not give those 7-8 yard cushions. Maybe play a little press coverage. I don't know. Maybe they were concerned about getting beat deep. I don't know. Marcellus Williams, he looked pretty good. DeCarlos Nicholson, not as great as his first 2 games. Braylon Connolly, he was in there. So again, without the safety play, I'm not sure where this grade is. It might be closer to like a C-, D+. They just didn't look sharp. And again, Michael Jackson, USC's former wide receiver, he had a really good game. So happy for him. But yeah, those guys were open too much. That's all I can say about that. we just did the linebackers. I'll just go solid C. They weren't great. They weren't terrible. They were just average. Again, too many missed tackles. I talked about that play from Eric Gentry. You got to make that play. I'm not mad. Eric is still one of my favorite players on the team. But you're like, come on, man. You had your chance for an interception. You dropped it. So we'll see what happens. Look, those turnovers that USC was able to create and recovered up a lot of mistakes that was going on. But I think big picture, realistically, if USC forces 2 to 3 turnovers per game, especially when they turned them over, that's going to make up for a lot of mistakes. And certainly going to make up for the crappy officiating. My Lanta. That was terrible. Just terrible. So, anywho, that's my grades for the game. How about I just wrap it up with this so I can get out of here? It's late. This is just my instant reaction. I'll have another full show for you on tomorrow's episode of Locked On USC. Through 3 games, USC has 33 tackles for a loss, 14 sacks, 6 interceptions, 1 forced fumble, 2 pick sixes. Again, Jaden Mayabe wasn't great, but he looks so much better than what we saw last year. He looks more confident, more comfortable. I think what was really great after the game, I asked the team, up there doing their post-game presser. So what are you guys going to take away from this? What are you looking forward to coming home with the victory? And Bishop Fitzgerald's like, hey, we'll probably have practice in about 15 hours. So I'm looking forward to that the most tomorrow. And I think he said it with a little bit of sarcasm. But hey, you know what? These guys are going to have a whole bunch of extra leg room on the airplane. Enjoy your flight home. You're 3-0. Enjoy the perfect season, not because you're 3-0. That's part of it. Enjoy the perfect season because you're undefeated and your 2 rivals, they're winless. A good weekend. So Champagne Sunday, folks. Enjoy your perfect weekend. I'll be back with another episode of Locked On USC tomorrow. I'll be with the MVP, Marvin Powell III. We're going to do a more thorough breakdown of this game. He said that USC would get 5 sacks. Guess what? They got 5 sacks. All right. So until that next episode, everyone, you know what to do. And get on over there to wearesc.com. We got a ton of written content for you. You're going to enjoy it. Looking forward to it. Talk to you soon.